All right, there we go.
Good. All right.
Junior.
Bradley.
All right, why are we here?
Why are we here? I mean,
What are we doing here? Yeah.
well, basically started with just the van. I guess just to give context, the van, Bradley's selling the van. And I so happened to find it on Facebook. Even though I was speaking about it the day before, I was like, wow, you know what? I really like a commercial van with some tools, but I don't know how I'm going to afford it and I don't know what I'm going to do. But I know that uh, I know that God wants me to start this business, but I don't know how this business is gonna go. And long and behold, I was scrolling through Facebook there, and Bradley's van popped up. Exactly what I was looking for. Even low kilometers and complete with tools. And I was like, I can't believe this. You know what? Go ahead.
Funny thing is, like, you come over to look at the van, and you didn't even look at it. Like, we were just started talking,
Right.
and yeah, looked in the passenger door, the side door, and yeah, we really just kind of.
That's it. We basically opened the doors just so we can hold on to while we talk to each other.
Yeah, because I mean, I've been pretty obsessed the last 4 years, really, of answers to impossible questions,
Right.
spiritual questions, like why are we here? It's I ask myself that all the time, and with a real intent, I want to know. I actually want to know, and it's that's kind of what I do as I go around talking to people, looking to uncover higher meaning and higher purpose, and I really I really have a frustration lately because of the way the world is. And don't get me, there's a lot of good things about the world, but there's a lot of things that aren't. And just everybody's kind of complacency and willingness to kind of go along with things how they are. It's incredibly frustrating. I don't know what to make of it.
So would you say that's like the thing that's frustrating you the most? Like people's unwilling or willingness to comply?
Well, that and uh, a seemingly lack of good options. Like what am I meant to do or supposed to do now? Considering the world that I find myself in. I mean, I'm one person.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, what can and yeah, but so that's kind of the frustration is what can I attach myself to now? And I don't really have a clear answer to that, and that's another source of frustration. But I mean, I think we're all kind of in the same boat. We all want to be part of something
Yeah, that's right.
that really does give us purpose, that does give us meaning. That
I think it's definitely part of human nature too, like to be able to be attached to something. If you think about humanity in itself, one of the main roots of humanity is companionship. Not even just humanity. I think nature in itself. If you look at different animals, trees, plants, whatever the case may be, anything in nature, you see that there's companionship in between them, where they're able to multiply and create new life and this and that. So even as humans, we're always looking for some form of companionship, whether it is between people or like let's say like man and woman, like husband wife and stuff, and or even just friendships, right? It, there's always a sense of companionship, even in relation to maybe even sport teams. Everyone wants to be connected in some way. Like imagine if we lived in a world where no one can relate to anything. Everyone wanted to be there in their own little bubble. But then even then, the people that want to be in their own little bubble are united by the fact that they want to be a part of their own little bubble. So there's always everyone's a part of something. And I guess maybe you want to touch on what you want to be a part of.
well, yeah, that's so you because in so many ways I've never been more connected
Yeah.
than now. I mean, just this encounter with you, this has been my life the last 3 years.
Wow.
It's just, and I've had like many, many deep, meaningful conversations with people, and I've really created some strong relationships with a lot of people. More people in the last 3 years than my entire life, by far. And yet, though, the opposite is also true. Like, I've never been more alone, ever. I've never felt so, yeah, really like alone. It seems like there's like a wall of glass between me and everyone. I mean, we're close. We're in the same room, but it's kind of like that with everyone. You know, my family. You know, and people I relate to. Like, I really connect with people on a certain level. Yeah, there's a certain level where I don't know. I just can't get to them, or they can't get to me. It's like I'm not really here.
Right. So it's like alone until you're not. Right. So like I guess sure you may enter into a room with people you have nothing in common with. And then like you said, there might be actually invisible barriers that separate you, but when you find someone that kind of wants to go into the same direction as you or has the same ideologies and stuff, it makes it a bit easier. It makes it easier for you to be able to connect with those people. Like they say, you know, you can have a lot of friends, but um, it's just the ones closest to you are the ones that truly love you. And I guess it really touched on how powerful love really is.
Yeah, and because I guess when it comes down to it, it really is about a way of living. It's about a way of life. And I mean, who do you have around you that is willing to, you know, kind of join forces with you and resources and to really start a way of life. And so that's definitely what I'm kind of looking for, kind of yearning for. And I'm not really talking about I'm not looking for a spouse, but I'm not discounting anything either. I'm looking more for community.
Right, right.
I'm looking more for a group of people, uh, yeah, like-minded people who want to band together to create a way of life that will pull us out of the twistedness of the culture that we're currently enslaved to.
Right.
Because I think, I really do believe that if we had the choice, we wouldn't live like this. If there was a viable alternative that we could actually choose, and you can start getting into what that actually looks like, and maybe it starts breaking down when you try. But yeah, I really do believe that we can do better, and it's going to take a group of people to create it now. Because if you're by yourself, you're enslaved. You're stuck. And I think we created this way of life, and we're stuck in it now. So it's not really serving people.
Do you feel like the way the world is causing a lot of division?
Yeah, it's all about division. And the division is very profitable. And so there's a huge incentive to create more and more division. I mean, even all the, you know, the news and the whatever. And it doesn't matter which side you listen to. There's truth in all of it, but there's definitely a motive in there
so too.
to heighten the drama and heighten the emotions and to keep people tuned in.
Yeah.
So if you tune in and you get angry, it's like well, you're gonna go back,
right?
Because keep getting informed about all these, whatever you want to label them, that are ruining the world and the culture. And
well, exactly. Like, you know, division. It almost seems like division is their vision. You know, that's what they're trying to seek. Like they're trying to seek to divide. And sometimes I think about the world. Actually, yesterday I was in West Edmonton Mall, and it was a weird feeling because like I went into the mall and I was starting to see things a lot different. The last time I was in the mall, I was a different person. You know, I was very materialistic. I wanted everything, and I found a lot of interest in it. But going yesterday, something felt different. Seeing everyone felt very different. Everything felt different. It did feel like there was a big division. And obviously, that's a commercial space. Like, that's a place where people buy and sell and whatever. And if you think about it, um, we are the product. Advertisement is basically the owner. But it made me think about material possessions, and how much it's truly affected us, and how we are divided, as you said before, as a result. If we think about the world, we'll think about success first of all. If we think about success and we see it as a tangible thing, like we see success equals more money. Let's say you have more money. Okay, now you're rich. Now you're a millionaire. So then now you want to become a billionaire. Okay, now you're a billionaire. Now you have all the money in the world and you're able to buy absolutely everything. Then what? You know what I mean?
Have you ever listened to uh, Jim Carrey is a pretty insightful guy. I was listening to. That's kind of what he ran into.
Yeah.
I mean, here's a guy who was rich beyond, rich and famous and all of that. At the top of the world, and yet he was unhappy. And yeah, when you're on top of the world, in the eyes of the people of the world, and you're unhappy, it's like, well, what can you aspire for?
It's interesting. It's like, why do we seek that? Why is it something that we want so bad? Why do we want such success? We think it's going to take away worries, or we think that more finances is what's going to allow us to move forward, or why?
Well, we're always trying to get away from where we're currently at on some level. Like, there's always something, and it really is this kind of wanting and this kind of like aspiring to something.
Yeah.
And I don't think, I don't know if you can actually ever really turn that off. But we've made money. Money is the gateway into kind of everything.
Which is sad. I think that money took the place of love.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think that money definitely took the place of love, where that's basically all we care about. And like you said, like, we always have that desire for more, for something different. Why do you think new iPhones sell every single year? Why there's a new one every year? Why there's a different Samsung? Why there's a different car model? Because we have that desire, and I know that the enemy knows that we have a desire to seek for more.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that money took the place of love, because I've said this a lot. So if I think of heaven, this world, this utopia, the currency in that place is love.
Yeah.
And love is God.
Yeah.
So God is the currency.
Exactly.
And a concept like money, you have this physical representation of God, of love. And as soon as you do that, you kind of put boundaries around God. You turn it into something that it's not. Because with love, with God, you can only do good. You can only, yeah.
It's funny that you say that, because if you think about it, if you take out any piece of money, any note, they all have faces on them, right? So the face of the enemy is money, but the face of God is love. Just like you said, the currency, right? The money has its face, but love has its face too. And that face is found in God. And that's the most beautiful part, because if we live in a world where it's completely run by that currency, which is God, then we can essentially have absolutely everything the same without the worry of someone being selfish, or someone being greedy, or someone stealing from you, or this and that, because we live in a selfless world where let's say someone is a house builder, another person's a car builder, like, hypothetically speaking. Like, I'm not saying heaven's going to be like this, but and someone else is I don't know, furniture builder. they all work together in love. They say, listen, do you have a house? Oh, no, I don't have a house. I will build you a house. Wow, thank you so much. Do you have a house? Yeah, I have a house. Okay, I'll build you a car. Okay, why don't I build you furniture? Why don't we do this all together? You go to a restaurant, they feed you for free. You go to whatever, you fly to a different country for free. What if we lived in a world like that, right? And it can only be done if there's love, because love requires self-sacrifice, not self-seeking. And I believe that the media has twisted the very essence of love, where it shows like, oh, I love you, but it's like all this romance and this and that, but then you see them like breaking up and whatever. That's not love. That's not the concept of love that God died for.
That's the kind of the limitation of the English language is we have one word for love. Like,
Right.
where Greeks have, well, four main, but like eight different words for love. But that agape love, that pure love, I mean, that's God love. And then anything like eros is, like a husband and wife. Like that's the root word of erotic. And it's love, but it's not, there's an ulterior motive in that kind of love. It's not pure.
Well, just like you said, eros, like the root word is of erotic, right? So if you think about like what Satan really does, he takes something that's true, something that's beautiful, and puts his twist to it. Like something erotic is it's not necessarily a good connotation, right?
That world. So as soon as you start talking like this, people, it's like, because it has to be a willing contribution. Like, if there's going to be a world like that, it has to be, everybody is willingly kind of part of that, kind of contributing to it. But that's why I say when beings are operating in love, money really doesn't have any value. It really doesn't. Like when I got married, and my wife and I, we didn't have her money and my money, it was kind of our money. And then when we had kids, we weren't keeping tabs on money. It really had no value within our family.
Yeah.
It was kind of non-existent. It was ours. And I think it can be expanded. I think you can add to the family. And this is Acts 4:32, where everyone was coming together and no one said that anything that was theirs, but they kind of had it all in common. They were really sharing resources to fulfill each other's needs and to help elevate others as well. Like there was just no idea of mine and my bank account, and because we've been so ingrained and trained in that to like save and it's really kind of an act of violence against each other. Right. Here we are saving everything, and it's prudent on one hand, right? It makes sense, save up, but it really kind of makes us all. It creates that division. It isolates us.
Yeah, that makes sense. Wow.
And then we're all pooling our resources together for these huge entities and corporations like the banks. It's like we all put our money in them, and what are they doing with it?
Exactly.
They're doing something.
Even have you ever thought about like credit becoming our god? Have you ever thought about that concept? Where we care so much about protecting our credit to be able to, I guess, move up in the world.
Yeah, it's kind of put in front of us as a carrot, like to entice us, to get kind of good credit. But also it's like as soon as you start getting good credit, like right now, like I have really good credit.
Yeah.
And the thought of, I don't have anything other than good credit. Right. But the thought of losing my credit, it's
that's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a level of control, and
right.
You kind of have the fear element to.
Oh wow! It just made me think of something like when credit becomes our identity.
Yeah.
Like when credit becomes our identity, like when you know someone that's known for having good credit, or known for someone that's known for having bad credit, it determines who they are and what their actions are going to be, which is interesting. I mean, if you think about that, um, we can kind of see. Well, again, yeah, we can kind of see how credit could have even taken the place of God. But I think anything that spent more time other than God becomes a God. But it's interesting. Then a lot of people want to lose their credit. Something that's coming to mind too is the rich young ruler. So he wanted to follow Jesus. He said, Jesus, like, don't I keep all the commandments? Like, is there something I can do? What can I do to follow you? He says, okay, sell everything you have and follow me. To the point where he couldn't do it. He didn't end up following God because it wasn't a part of him. That was a part of his identity. And he couldn't be a Christian, which is interesting. It's so interesting.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, he said, I'm doing everything right.
right.
And he says, what must I do? Is there something else I can do? And Jesus tells him what to do. So I take this, I take this kind of literally.
Yeah, of course.
And, but a lot of people really have problems with that passage. And, because people will just say, well, my things don't have domain over me. They don't have control over me.
Prove it,
That's it. It's one thing to say that. But if that's true, then leave it.
Then leave it. That's right.
Then absolutely leave it. Because, yeah, it's one thing to say it and one thing.
Exactly. And oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I made a video before I left. And I was kind of in a more of a bamboozled state of mind. But yeah, it was kind of that. And it was like, how do I know that that God is my God and my wealth isn't my God? And I was kind of, yeah, that was before I kind of left on the journey. And it was this idea that I only have to prove it to myself. It doesn't matter who else and whatever, but the only way to prove it to myself is to actually do it. It's really the only way. Because otherwise, how would I ever know? I'll always be just saying it without ever really knowing if it's true.
That's right. That's almost like when someone says, like, I'll take a bullet for you. But are they the same person running away or running towards? So just like that, I mean, God, he's such a loving God. Of course he protects us. He does whatever it takes. But I'm sure he wants to see if we're willing to take a bullet for him. Look at Abraham. He told Abraham to go and sacrifice his son. So to the point where Abraham was ready to sacrifice his son. And then the angel stopped him from punching the knife through his son's chest. Which is interesting. That was proven that he was willing to take that bullet for Christ. God, of course, because Christ came out. Well, still Christ. He was willing to do it, and his actions showed through that action. Now, sometimes we ask ourselves, why did God choose Abraham as the covenant, like to make the covenant with? Because he says that it was counted to him. His faith was the one that allowed him to go through this. That God can even give this promise that his descendants will inherit the kingdom, or they'll be as countless as the stars. Because there's no one else on earth that was willing to take the bullet for God.
But everyone could have.
They could have.
Like what you're saying is Abraham chose it. Abraham,
right.
God's saying, here's the flag. Who's going to take the flag for us? And he's like, give me the flag. I want and everybody. That's how I see it now. It's who's kind of willing to take the flag? Who wants to? And we all kind of have that choice. But that's kind of the sacrifice of his son. Like, I really see that as symbolism for like a willingness to give.
Right.
Everything.
Again, if you think about it, it all goes back to the same thing. Love. Love is self-sacrificing. It's not self-seeking. Abraham, he was self-sacrificing in that time to the point where he was going to kill his. Well, he had another son at the time as well, but this was his son that was from his wife Sarah. This was the anointed son, the one that was promised, right? And he was ready to sacrifice his son, his only son. Just like there's that correlation where God gave up his only son, and that's why that happened. It was to be an example of Jesus.
Well, there's other references though in the Bible to the fact that God hardens the hearts of people. So like Pharaoh and all of Egypt, it was God who hardened Pharaoh's heart and kind of blinded him in a sense. Because this kind of goes along to the question of how much free will and choice do we actually have, and how much is fate.
Interesting.
And so, I have a friend who really believes that free will is actually illusion, that we actually don't have free will at all. And if I just think of my life, just me, myself,
Yeah.
every choice I've made ever has been determined by a bunch of different things.
Yeah.
But why am I motivated to like this instead of that and choose this? Like, did I even choose that?
I got two things. The first one is speaking on Pharaoh. When that passage says that God hardened his heart, it was more in the place of like Pharaoh got to a place where God couldn't do anything anymore, so he let go. He gave up, like not gave up on him, but he let go. He just let Pharaoh just do his thing. And it wasn't in the sense that he was taking away Pharaoh's free will. It's just Pharaoh already got to the point of no return. He got to the point where no matter what God did, he wouldn't have turned to God anymore. And I got three things now. so now the second one was
well, hang on.
Yeah.
Because the Pharaoh thing. Because even there's other places where he says, God makes some vessels. He's talking about pottery.
Right.
Makes some vessels for honorable use and some vessels for dishonorable.
Well,
use.
because he knows the vessels. He knows what the vessel will end up turning into. Right. Just like a potter, like he knows how it's going to be formed or whatever. But over time, since God knows absolutely everything, he knows the outcome of that vessel.
But right? I think we need this immense opposition as well.
Yeah.
So when he opened the eyes of Moses and showed Moses the way, Moses needed Pharaoh to be Pharaoh. He needed Egypt to be Egypt.
Yeah.
If everybody was doing it, it would be easy.
Right.
And if we're here for some test or challenge to see if we can do it, well, the way to be really tested is have no one follow you and see if you can stay on the path.
Right, exactly.
Because it's easy to do it if people are coming along. It's like, we just do it. But what if nobody gets it?
Right.
What if you get a message like Abraham was out in the whatever for 40 years? That takes a lot of faith to stay on a path that in one perspective is ridiculous. You're just going to walk out into the wilderness. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Right.
And yet it makes sense on a personal level. Like when you're like, so Lot running out of Sodom.
Yeah, got it. Yeah.
It was really the only choice he had. I mean, the place was so corrupt. The only thing that made sense was to kind of leave it.
Yeah, of course. So you kind of have to have like something stop you in order to know if you can overcome it. It's almost like you're saying like it's like Abraham didn't have a son to sacrifice. How can he prove God that he's faithful to him, right? Is that what you mean, kind of thing?
I'm not sure what you're asking me there, but it is this immense opposition.
Yeah.
This, and I think that's how the only way to really be tested is to kind of be on your own.
Yeah, I agree. Oh, the second point. The second point was about free will. You said that sometimes that you choose things and you don't understand why you choose those things, right? Different paths or something that you take. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, well, I didn't have any specific examples, but
okay. Let's say oranges. Let's say you like oranges. Why don't you like apples? Why don't you like bananas?
Yeah.
We do have free will. God, and you know what? The reason there's even sin in the world is because we have free will. Because God gave us an opportunity to even choose him or not him.
I definitely agree with that.
Right? So Satan had, well, Lucifer at the time, he had free will to the point where he could have rebelled against God or not. The angels were created with free will, where they could rebel or not. And God created them with the knowledge or knowing that they can turn on him. But he still created them out of love, no matter what the outcome would have been. And of course, God gave Lucifer many chances before anything happened, but he chose his own path. Now, something that Satan does that is on contrary to God is that Satan doesn't really give us free will. He forces a lot of things onto us. Like sometimes you don't know why, but you just saw the commercial and you really want that product now, even though you weren't really thinking about it before. He forces it in a form of conditioning. But God doesn't. He doesn't condition us. He never conditioned the Israelites to follow him. He never conditioned even the modern Israelites to follow him either. Not the Gentiles either. No one. He didn't force anyone. In fact, even Jesus had free will, although being God. He still had free will too. To the point where in the Garden of Gethsemane, he asked God, he said, Father, if remove this cup from me, but if it's your will. Meaning the suffering was so much on Jesus at that point where he was willing to almost give up the whole thing. Because imagine this. This is something
It's too much.
my pastor, shout out to Pastor Brian if you hear this. Something my Pastor Brian said was, he said, imagine you sin. Okay, let's imagine we all sin. How guilty must that feel? It feels horrible, right? Like when you sin, you feel absolutely guilty. Right?
You know you're doing something wrong.
And you feel horrible and like it's very dirty and dark and stuff, right? So imagine 100 of us feeling that. Exact same feeling. Now imagine all of the population that's now, which is 7 point something billion. Imagine all of that sin in one. Now imagine that sin, the sin that was before from all the fallen people, and the sin that's to come. That's what Jesus put on himself. It was a suffering beyond comparison, a suffering we will never be able to feel. Imagine like someone cheats on you. That hurts. Imagine all of them cheating on you. Imagine all of that pain inside of you. And he took it on himself to be able to die for that, to sacrifice, even though he did absolutely nothing. He was a lamb without blemish, which is also a correlation to the sanctuary, the tabernacle and stuff. But lamb without blemish, yet he had free will to turn his back. He had free will to not do it. Where he asked God, but then he was like, no, if this is your will, let it be done. To the point where he accepted it because he wanted to do the Father's will. He wanted to complete the Father's mission, no matter how difficult it must have been. Right? Another thing too is when Satan was tempting him. He was tempting him with really difficult things. Jesus was he was fasting for 40 days, 40 nights. He was in the wilderness. Satan offers him bread, which a human is in need of. And Jesus was in human form, although being God. He was still in human form, taking whatever humans go through without using any divine power. And the reason he didn't use any divine power, not only because he wanted to be example, it's because he wanted to be example that we can do it too, in this human form that we're in, right?
That's why you're going through this very well-known Christian narrative of Jesus took the world. I have huge problems with that.
Yeah.
Like I have huge problems with that. It doesn't. I can make it fit on some level, but he was what we are now. Whatever he was is exactly what you and I are now.
Exactly.
With no difference whatsoever.
Nothing.
And actually, the only way he could ever be tempted was if he was He had to have forgotten who he was on some level.
Or
Because
chosen.
God
Yeah.
cannot be tempted. If you know and you are this all-powerful being,
Right.
then there's no way to tempt you with anything.
Exactly.
Because you can just create it when you want. The only way to be tempted is to forget who you are on some level.
Right.
And I think that's exactly what the problem is with the world, is we've actually all forgotten who we really are.
Where we've come from, really. Yeah.
We're born into these costumes, and my whole life I really did think I was this costume. Like I did, and it's very compelling because it hurts. When it's pain, the greatest pleasures and the greatest pains are the nails and the rivets that bind the soul to the body. It makes this dream really feel real. That's Plato, the nails and the rivets. But yeah, we've forgotten who we are. We have an identity crisis. We think we're something that we're not.
Right, and we think that we can't get anywhere. But like you said, Jesus was in the same form as us. Jesus was tempted. I know that, yes, he must have had forgotten who he was. But if you think about what he was tempted with, it has some crazy significance. So, again, he was tempted with food, with bread. He says, no, I'm not going to take it. And then he was tempted. What do you call this? Satan took him to the highest point of the mountain. He says, I can give you all of this if you bow down to me. Why did he do that?
He would have been the rich young ruler if he had have took it all. He would have had everything materially and the status to go along with it.
Sure, but think about it in a deeper level. Like, what was Jesus' mission to come here in the first place? To redeem us, right? To actually get the earth back. So Satan was offering the earth back to him.
I would say his mission is the exact same as ours.
Right.
Because you're right, I agree with you. He was trying to redeem us.
Right.
Trying to help us. But he was also trying to go up for air himself. Because he actually forgot who he was. He was in a place where he was tempted. And he was at a breaking point. Like that prayer where he says, you kind of remove this cup. Yeah. He's at a breaking point. You can't take. We can only take so much before things snap. Something's got to give. Something's got to break.
If you think about it too, like again, yes, Jesus was at his weakest point at this point in time. He was at his weakest point. He didn't have any food and water. He didn't have anything. So that's basically when Satan strikes the most effective. When we're at our weakest point, he gives us or tries to convince us with something that is a solution. So again, the bread that would have given Jesus strength at the time. He would have had strength enough to walk back or something, whatever the case may be. Now, yes, again, when he pointed up and he said, "This all can be yours," Satan was saying that to him. Jesus came here to redeem us. He came here to save the world. So if he would have accepted, that would have been mission complete. Oh, okay, good. I got the whole earth. But at whose expense? It would have been at the Father's expense, where he would disobey the Father to the point where the Father's mission wouldn't exist anymore. Right? So Jesus says, no, don't you know you can't tempt the Father? It says it in the Word. And then the other one was he tempted Jesus to fall because he said the angels would catch him. Right? So that's interesting as well because that's showing Jesus' divinity. Satan's acknowledging that this is God. And if it is God, then essentially if he throws himself, he will be saved. Nothing will happen to him. But again, Jesus said the Father should not be tempted. So he was not listening to him. He was not listening to Satan, but Satan was tempting him with very, 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 I guess, psychological things, even for a human. Right? So you have to think that Satan he's a manipulator. That's why he convinced, 1/3 of the angels and stuff like that. But Jesus is now in the weakest form of his existence. Although still being God, the only thing that was giving him strength, the only thing that was keeping him moving forward was his trust in God. Was the amount of love he had for God, the willingness he had for God that allowed him to complete everything. And we can get to that point.
I think the overriding message is, and this is pretty much every religion, is that, we're in a place or a world or a state that isn't home. And, we're trying to get home. And so the Buddhists, they call it, this is Maya. It's the cosmic delusion.
Yeah.
It's all illusion. The whole thing is a dream, in a sense. When we're trying to break free of the ignorance and kind of liberate ourselves. It's like we're stuck in a web, and there's a spider in this web trying to keep us.
Right. So, but even in that, so Maya is the illusion.
Oh, but what I'm saying is, he really had the intent to go home. So if we're here, and this is our life, but there's something greater waiting that is beyond comprehension, well, then what are we actually experiencing here? If that's life, then what is this? See, this, from the other side of the coin, those beings in that state or that place or whatever, they're looking down. We're dead here. We're something less. Whatever it is, we're something less.
Right.
And that's the message, is that as long as you're in that body, as long as I'm in this body, as long as Jesus was in that body, he was missing the mark. We're something less than our true self.
That's interesting.
And we really are trying to be made whole, to get home. And they had an eagerness, they were looking forward to it. They so many passages in the Bible where they really have this eagerness for their day, their death, and they really are looking forward to it. I mean, that's the whole story of the gospel. He knew where it led. He knew at the start how it was going to end, and he was looking forward to it. He wasn't looking forward to the suffering, I'm sure, because who does? But he knew where it was leading to, and he had this faith in who and what he really was. And
amen. That's beautiful. The fact that he knew what was going to happen, but he still did it for us. He's still out of love complete.
That mindset changes things, though.
Yeah.
So if death is the doorway into, something greater, and I've had, some people, I've said that quite a bit to quite a few people. This kind of idea that death is really something to be looked forward to, and some people are like, well, just kill yourself, jump off a.
That's a different kind of death, eh?
And so I've thought about this. I've really thought about this, because in a sense, it really was a suicide. Like Jesus, from a certain perspective, it was a suicide. He orchestrated and planned the whole thing, and then followed up the plan. And it's very interesting.
Well, think about it like this. Sorry to break your thought. It was more of a sacrifice than a suicide. The reason being is suicides typically are, and I hate to say it, I hope no one gets offended, but almost in a form of selfishness. Like you're trying to get away from something for yourself. Right? But what he did was he was trying to get into something for someone else. So it's a completely different thing, because what he did was, although knowing it was going to happen, he did it out of love. But suicide is almost like an escape. But God didn't escape. He confronted. He confronted a pain that was coming to him that was bigger than anything, so that we can be free. Right? But when someone commits suicide, who is being freed? You or someone else?
Well, it depends, but everybody who commits suicide, it's not all selfish. So if you create a twisted way of life, and the beings in that, they reject it. It's like, well, I have no choice. This is my way out, and then boom. It is a good indication for everyone who's a part of that culture, that they are creating something that's messed up, that they are a part of something. It's not solely selfish, because it does send a message to the larger group as a whole.
Got it, yeah.
I'm not necessarily saying it's the right
thing to do.
thing to do. But I can't say that either. Maybe it is.
Well, think about it like this too. Some people don't know that there's something else out there. I know that a lot of course, all of the suicides are based on something that they have no control over anymore. Let's say they were born into an abusive family, then they had an abusive spouse, to the point where they lost everything. They see no way out. You and I are different because we have at least a hope in God. A hope in God that there's a savior, there's someone that can help us even through our current condition. Right? But there's some people that don't know who God is. And maybe these same people are raised in a spiritual home where God is a part of their home. They're Christians. Yet they are not acting like Christians. They're abusing their kids. They're doing this, they're doing that. Right? So some people don't have hope. Some people don't know what hope looks like. Some people don't know what love looks like. Now, I'm
Maybe
not
none
saying,
of us do.
I know that selfish is kind of the wrong connotation, or not the way I wanted to approach it, but more in the sense like it is a self thing. It is a self thing, even if it's a pain, right? Because
Yeah.
it's something people don't. No one wants to die. Like
Well, I don't know, and that's what I was saying. So Paul, who wrote a lot of the New Testament, and they really were looking forward. They were looking forward to dying because they knew that it really was the doorway into life.
Right, but that was also a dying to old self, like he talks about in Corinthians.
Well, that's both. So there's the, but he was looking forward to his day. So he says, as long as we're in this body, we're away from the Lord, and I would rather be away from this body and at home with the Lord. That's 2 Corinthians 5:6 and 5:8.
Right.
And then Philippians, he's talking, he says to die is gain, and he's hard pressed between the two, but he would rather depart, and because it's better. And it's not talking about we're going to go find the nearest bridge and we're going to go jump off and kill ourselves. But what it's more saying is that death just becomes a non-issue.
Mm-hmm.
If I die today, well, great, because it's actually the best thing that could ever happen to me.
Yeah.
But if I don't,
I feel you.
If I don't, well then, I'm going to do what I can now to kind of help the situation, help the world, help myself.
Right. Exactly.
Whatever.
It's a different.
It alleviates the fear. It's like you step out of the fear.
Right.
Now all of a sudden we can live now because there really is nothing to fear, and that's my biggest problem with the world right now is that there's just rampant fear. Like people really are ruled and governed by their fear. It's like it's Russian roulette out there, and if you go out there, like watch out. And the whole COVID thing really highlights how fearful people are.
Right.
And and you can see it. People are clinging onto this existence so hard because there is this doubt that there is anything.
But that's also the incentive.
Like if we knew for sure that there was something after this, and the something after this was better, wow,
right,
that would change the world.
But brother, like that's the incentive, like for life. Like Satan uses the incentive of life to be able to manipulate us, right? Like because we want to live forever, right? No one wants to die, no one wants to lose anyone. And even speaking on Paul had an opportunity to go to heaven. He had an opportunity, but he chose not to, so he could stay and minister to people, right? So that was an opportunity even to. It's a form of love, right? It was a form of love.
He knew his day was coming.
Right.
And he was looking forward to it. And his day did come.
Yeah.
He got beheaded, and he really was looking forward to it.
Right, but that's a different kind of death now, which is exciting. This is a death that, like you said,
it's actually not a death at all.
Right,
when he lost his head. That's when he truly was born.
That's when you live. Right. And again, the Bible encourages us to die to self, and when we're able to die to self, that's when we begin to live. And it says that as well, which is beautiful. I know it makes no sense to someone that doesn't believe or doesn't know what the word says, but dying to self is even the changing of the meaning of death. Like you said, there's only been one true death that's ever happened, which is the death of Jesus. because he conquered death. He conquered death. Everything else is not really a form of death because, like you said, it's a point of life until Revelation talks about the second death and stuff like that, because then that's after judgment, and that's when right. But as far as death goes, it's not complete death. Like we believe in the state of the dead as Seventh Day Adventist, and a part of that is also that a lot of the people that have passed away are really just sleeping until the second coming of Jesus, and we're able to be resurrected and understand, right?
I have a big problem with that as well.
Yeah.
I think it's us trying to. We can't conceive of a world outside of time, but when you think of an eternal nature, our true eternal nature,
Weird, right?
time really kind of ceases to be. It's not part of, and we can't conceptualize outside of time. So that whole state of the dead, Ellen White's state of the dead,
Yeah.
that's her brain trying to work within the confines of time. But really, time's illusion. I mean, that's the theory of relativity.
Right.
Is that there's nothing actually real here.
Right.
Nothing. And time itself is relative.
Because it's been made relative, and as a form of sin, I believe that's when the time concept came in, because God was a part of something that time did not exist. He's the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. But how can you be the beginning and the end at the same time?
It's a paradox.
Right. It's a paradox. That's right. So, there's kind of a concept that I think of, and this is not exactly, I don't know, I'm pretty sure it's biblical, but no, it's not exactly biblical. It doesn't say that in the Bible. This is just my thoughts. But in heaven there will be the tree of life, and in it we consume it and we have eternal life. I almost feel like God gives us free will even in that, like whether we want to continue taking the fruit or not.
Absolutely.
Which is interesting. Like
because if you get there,
right,
and there's this is what I say. The thing that makes heaven is the beings in that culture.
Amen.
Here you have these Christ-like beings who are putting the needs and regards of everyone above themselves. They put themselves at the bottom willingly.
Yeah.
But when they all do it, they harmonize with each other.
Right.
Nobody's trying to gain an advantage. Everybody's kind of lifting up. And they know it's in their best interest to do that, because if they don't, it will degenerate, and they'll be at each other's throats. They'll start becoming twisted, and they'll fall again.
Exactly.
It's like the only way you can be in that place is to be like that,
and want
and as
to
soon
be.
as you and want to and have incentive to be like that. Yeah.
Right.
But the moment that you're not, it always has to be a choice. It always has to be a choice.
And he always will give us one. He's always given us one.
That's what most Christians will say. Well,
right.
As soon as Jesus comes back and takes us and gets rid of we'll be there forever. And
some people don't want forever.
But that kind of doesn't really fly with me, because if there's no choice to choose wrong, well, then you don't really have free will. And I can logically map out why you would want to come back to a twisted world like this again. I mean, if you're this all-knowing, powerful being of light and love, and you're looking down at this place of ignorance and suffering, well, maybe it starts looking more appealing. You don't really have any problems, and you're looking, maybe you just want to be a dog and just be ignorant, but be
content, kind of thing.
Yeah, you have that experience.
That's
like
interesting.
You kind of want to choose it again.
It's interesting that you say that too. And I strongly believe, with all my heart, that God allowed sin to happen in order for us to have choice to. In order for us to see this is what that looks like. Like you said, it might look appealing, but maybe God allowed sin to happen. I'm not going to say maybe. I'm saying this for a fact. God allowed sin to happen so that we see how dirty it really is. It's not worth it. You know what I mean? If it's ignorance that we really seek, then why are we seeking a relationship with God? We can just remain ignorant. We're already doing it. You know what I mean?
The only way to really know something is to explore its opposite. Like the only way you're going to
exactly.
figure out the light and the love is you really have to experience and even be
Right.
the darkness.
So we experienced it. That was our form of experiencing darkness. Now, if there's people that want darkness, heaven's not for them.
I really believe that we chose it.
Right,
So
right.
I don't label myself as anything. Like
Yeah.
I can see, doesn't matter what I read, I can like all these religions and philosophies for me are really saying the same thing. At the core of it, they're saying the same thing. They really complement each other. They give me a fuller, clearer picture. For me to logically make sense of why I'm here and why we're here, I do have to go out of the bounds of Christianity.
Yeah, of
because
course. Yeah.
because we're in a world of suffering. We're in the darkness.
Mm-hmm.
If I didn't choose to be here, if I was placed here in this, and some people have suffered way more than I have. Some people were born into horrific situations. Now, if that's an innocent being that was placed there by a loving God, that doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense.
They were set up for disaster. They were set up to be raped and tortured, and it doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
There has to be, I can map out in my mind how it's possible to be in a situation like that, but I have to add previous choices into the equation to make sense of it. This is where like a previous lives or incarnations or it's the only way I can make sense of that.
There's a term for that, like where you can retrace. Well, it's just basically retracing everything. Everything gets retraced, but the only thing that can't is God, because it's, again, it's a loop. You're just gonna keep going and going. We can't understand God. But like you said, even comparing with different religions, they all actually are so similar that people don't understand. Earlier, you're talking about Maya. Maya is the Hindu form of sin. It's a delusion of things. But then if you think of Brahman, Brahman is the all-powerful God that takes in many different forms, like Vishnu, Shaktis, and
Krishna.
Krishna, that's right.
Yeah, these incarnations of Christ.
Right, exactly.
Like Krishna is Jesus, Christ on earth.
So then the Bhagavad Gita, it talks about, it's a journey of Arjuna, which was the warrior, right? And how he's able to get out of Maya to be able to go into moksha. Moksha would be the heaven, right? Now, if you look at Buddhism, Buddhism would be nirvana. So you're entering nirvana to the point where this is where like you've done reincarnating. You're in your own form now and stuff like that. So, and Christians, of course, we believe in heaven. It all has some form of twist, but none of them really truly create a solution.
But at the root of all of them is the foundation of love and that golden rule: love your neighbor as yourself. And that's like the whole, that's what it's all kind of rooted about.
Right, right.
Like the Bible is, it really is about love your neighbor as yourself. That fulfills all of
exactly. The law. And it's funny because like you said, in other religions they talk about it as well.
And the only way to actually do that is to become Christ-like.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only way to truly love your neighbor as yourself, is to actually not only see yourself as Christ-like, but also to see everyone else. Like, I've talked, like a lot of people, this one guy in particular, he said, I see everyone as Jesus. I like to think that there's Jesus in everyone.
Mm-hmm.
But if we really did believe that, that would really reflavor how we think and interact with people.
Right, exactly. I mean, that's why, like, he also talks about us being siblings, like, we're united through the blood.
He said, when you did it to the least of these, my brothers, you did it to me.
Exactly.
Like every interaction with another being. And I go outside of humanity even with this. Every interaction with another being is interaction with yourself or God, or however you want to look at it.
Yeah, even talking about Ellen G. White's writings, there's a writing she talks about in Patriarchs and Prophets, where she talks about even animal cruelty and stuff like that. Like, some people are very cruel to animals, but as a result, God sees that too. Our cruelty towards animals can be seen as a cruelty towards God too, in a way, because that's a part of His creation. That's something He loves.
Absolutely.
He loves everything. I mean, why wouldn't you love everything you created? You know what I mean? But
Just because you can corral and herd a group of beings and raise them and eat them, I mean, doesn't necessarily mean you should.
right,
There's it kind of it turns it really does shape your mind. And so if I
especially
just look at a group
yeah,
of beings as food, well, I'm going to treat them like that. But I'm also going. It's going to spill out into how I treat other types of beings
exactly. It's just
and whatever.
like a conscious, especially if it's a conscious being. Like if they know what something's going on. Like you see some dogs, they're so smart. I love dogs. Those are my favorite animals. But some dogs are just so smart, but they have feelings. They know what's going on. Now there's what's the word? Whatever. Anyways, creation that doesn't have any conscience. It's not thinking. It's not like a fruit, a vegetable.
Right.
That's a form of creation that doesn't
Like
think.
sentient.
Yeah, sentient. That's right. Non-sentient. Exactly it. Uh, it doesn't know what's going on. It doesn't know if you're offending it or not.
I don't know
Although
about that.
some plants, yeah, if you talk to them a certain way, they react, right?
Yeah, they know something on a certain level,
Yeah.
and there's even evidence that plants and they really kind of communicate with each other.
Right, exactly. But I'm sure they don't get offended when you take a piece of fruit off of it, right? A lot of the time they drop fruits, right? They drop fruits and stuff. Vegetables, I don't know. Maybe that's more of
Yeah, I totally
torturous.
get what you're saying, and I totally agree as well. But yeah,
Yeah.
I do wonder kind of how aware they are. Yeah,
How do they think about it? But I think fruits are okay. And honestly, in Genesis, it actually talks about that we humans were the ones that ate the fruits and the animals were the ones that ate the vegetables. I wonder. I don't know if that has something to do with something. Maybe that was just a thought. but it is interesting. Like yeah, when you're torturing these animals, when you're doing this, you're doing something to God. Like those animals weren't created to suffer. They weren't made to suffer like that. They weren't made to be reproduced and
even
consumed.
like the term like animal husbandry. Back in the day, people didn't have feedlots where they're just raising thousands of. It really was a partnership, and you kind of have a union with this animal, and you kind of work together for mutual
Yeah.
benefit.
I could see that.
And
I could see that.
that really is the true, like a cow, right? They had the cow and they would pull whatever, and they could move stuff and whatever.
But then you
And
also have to take care of the cow. Yeah, exactly.
and they protected it, but it wasn't like a source of food. It wasn't, maybe at some point, but I don't even, I don't know.
I think it was never meant to be. If it was a case, and
The more we just see these
yeah,
animals
degradation
as
kind of
just
thing.
kind of food, the less respect we have for them.
Right.
But like I said, it spills over. It's the less respect we have for actually anything,
Got it.
even ourselves and even each other. And you get to this mindset where this kind of like just get rid of this group. If we just get rid of this group, we'll be fine. And this kind of final solution thing.
Right. It's interesting that you say that too about cruelty because a lot of the serial killers they actually begin with animals. Like sure it'll be like chickens or whatever first, but then they kind of move to cats and dogs. They kill cats and dogs. And they don't really care. They're starting to lose their feelings. Then they start moving into other things, and then to the point where they start actually killing people without having to feel anything. And I think that even the act of killing like that creates something within us, something very dark.
Yeah, like culturally, we're so desensitized.
Even
Like there's
yeah,
meat plants and whatever
there's
all
farmers
over the place.
Yeah, but my
We don't
roommate,
even give it a second thought.
right? My roommate, he worked at a farm for a little bit, and he was kind of like traumatized as a result because he saw that the cow was being castrated and this and that, and the guy had no emotion towards it. The guy didn't even care. He took off the horns and it felt nothing about it. Even though this cow was like crying and bleeding, and it's just like, how do we get to the point where our hearts get so hard that that doesn't affect us anymore? Something suffering doesn't matter. So then what happens? Like, what
We
if that
just
farmer goes
tell themselves, well, they don't actually feel. They
right?
don't have a soul. They don't have a.
But then they go
They
home
don't
and
matter.
right, they go home and beat their wives. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Well, don't Because the
not
average
all.
person
Yeah.
is a good person
Yeah, that's
who
true.
just tunes out
Certain
the
parts.
like all that suffering. Like I said, everyone who goes to the grocery store and buys whatever meat they're buying for supper or whatever, they're good people. Like everybody,
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
and yet they really have tuned out that part of it and desensitized. That they've been desensitized, and
Right.
they continue to willfully be ignorant of it as well.
Right.
Because if you tune into it and you start looking into it, well, then you're going to have to change your life. You're
Well,
going to have to.
there's
and
more
who wants
of
that?
There's more of like a moral acceptance when you're accepting something that's already dead. So
Yeah, and if you're following the herd, well, this is just
Right.
how it is.
right,
It's like,
right. Exactly. Like you can
Yeah.
get a 2-for-1 burger at
justify
whatever.
it.
Right, justified. But for me, like thinking about the one actually committing the act of killing has probably a tougher heart than the person consuming. Right? Like and it's kind of sad. Like I don't know how people can really do that. I understand the consumerism part. Yes, a lot of us were raised eating meat and stuff like that. It's part of life. And in fact, a lot of the time the fastest food that we eat comes from animals. Right? Which is kind of sad because if you think about it, each animal had to have years of growth to be able to get to the point where they were. Right? Which is sad. Like you're essentially taking away. I don't know. It's funny because fast food came from a slow process, but anyways, that's just my thought right now.
Yeah, and that's that industry is a huge strain on the environment, on
Huge.
pretty much most
Global warming and all
agriculture
that stuff too. Yeah, like
is really going to feed livestock that we
yeah.
don't
But we lost love.
we don't actually need to sustain ourselves, and is actually isn't the healthiest way to sustain ourselves either. It's really the source of source of a lot of our diseases
Yeah.
are from consuming, these animal products.
Right.
Pretty much everything we're vaccinated for is because of consumption of animals.
Right. Right. Or yeah, exactly.
If we were just to eat right and be right, I mean, we would just kind of,
Then you feel right. just go with the right.
everything would start lining up.
Right.
But see, this is religion. This is the true religion. We're people's way of life, what they eat. That's the true religion, regardless of what people say. And people do not like. People really don't like when someone kind of points out or highlights something on that level.
The Proverbs talks about that too. It says a fool that you oh my goodness, how does it go? That you reprove, he despises you.
But,
So,
but I'd be really careful too, because I would never, who am I to say to someone else what's right or wrong? I mean, I don't know a damn thing about anything, and that's the reason why I do. There's certain things that don't feel right for me, but I know the way to help others isn't to go around pointing. He's like, that's wrong, and this is wrong, and whatever.
And that's
it's more just kind of live a life in accordance with what I know to be right and true, and maybe I can learn, attract.
That's awesome. That's exactly what I was going to say too.
Because
being the example or be the change you want to be in the world or you want to see in the world, as you say.
Yeah.
That's interesting. But it all really comes down to the same thing, Bradley. That money took the place of love. And love is really the beginning of all.
Money took the place of love.
I think that's the mantra. Is that the right word? Mantra?
I think it's the original sin. People talk about the original sin. I think as soon as this concept of money was invented, became reality, that's when things started getting twisted.
I think
maybe because it was born out of fear and greed on kind of both sides of the coin. It's like fear of being kind of shortchanged or not having enough.
Well, think about this. So, before there was money, it was trades. Everyone would trade things. Like, okay, you have this many cows, I'll give you this many for this. So, I think the original sin was still maybe even pride that Satan had, or the jealousy that he had towards.
But even trade. so before trade, there had to have been just
Right. Something.
Like a pooling, like a sharing of, you know,
There must have
like a
been.
wolf pack. They don't trade with other wolf packs. They, well, I guess that's not a good example because they would compete with other wolf packs. But within the pack, there's no concept of money. There is a hierarchy, but there's no concept of money.
But it's selfishness.
Like they work together as a
Right.
pack. Like even a Pride of Lions, they work together
Right.
for the fulfillment of the needs of all of them.
I think it's still selfishness. I think was the first sin, because if you think about that in the concept, like, yes, okay, let's say before there was money, before there was trade.
Yeah, there's still hierarchies.
Think about it. Think about the Garden of Eden. There were just fruits, vegetables, and animals. Okay, but now since sin entered, I have more animals than you. I have bigger fruits than you. I have this. But one thing that's I just said 3 times was the concept of I. You know, there's a little like metaphor I have for that. Is don't let your eyes blind you. Sometimes when your eyes blind you, you can't see. Because if you all you see is I, you think of yourself, you tend to not see the things around you. And I believe the first sin was selfishness, that Satan wanted more. He wanted more than what he thought he deserved, or whatever the case may be. And
absolutely.
What happened? What was the first thing Adam did after he ate the fruit? He sold his wife out. He said, "No, it was the wife you gave me. She is the one." Why? Because he's protecting I. He made an I statement.
Our whole identity is the ego is rooted in self.
Exactly.
And it's hard to view other people as yourself or just as
love. It's self-sacrificing. It's not self-seeking.
That's what I say. I think that's really what we require to change the world, is for people to start seeing themselves in other people and acting accordingly.
And self-sacrificing. If you're willing to sacrifice for someone else, someone's able to see how much you love them. There is a term. There was this quote. I'm going to quote. It says, "Love is so close, or listening is so close to being loved." So, with that idea, is that you listening to someone is so close to you showing that you love them. So, that being said, even listening to someone requires a form of sacrifice, because you have to listen to what they have to say without interrupting, just truly listening to them. Yeah. You're sacrificing your time, you're sacrificing your energy. What if you're sacrificing maybe even your plans that you had later on or something, whatever the case may be. But when you truly listen to someone, when you truly sit there and you're with them, it requires a form of sacrifice. And again, it goes right back to love. Love is self-sacrificing. It's not self-seeking. If that was the point, Jesus would have never died for us. He self-sacrificed himself for all of us. This is kind of talking about, it's just kind of random, but like, C.S. Lewis, he has the book, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, right? If you look at the lion, Aslan, he self-sacrificed himself for them.
Yeah.
To the point where, obviously, that was like biblical correlations,
same story.
Right?
It's the same story. It doesn't matter which religion or philosophy or even these stories. It's the same.
Same
it's
thing.
The same message. It's all exactly the same. That's what solidified it for me when I was kind of having this awakening. I'm like, holy crap! They're all, like, even songs, like songs I grew up with, and songs you wouldn't expect, like Twisted Sister and whatever else. It's like, holy crap! There really is deep meaning.
Well, everything, like Bradley, if you think about even being a celebrity, why do people become celebrities? And why do people want to be a celebrity? Why do they want to be famous?
We all have that. We all want some kind of recognition from each other.
So you think Lucifer wanted recognition for the efforts he was putting?
What was that?
Lucifer wanted recognition for that efforts he was putting, or he wanted to be in that on par. He's feeling the same thing.
It does. Yeah, it is an identity that. Yeah. Yeah, we definitely have that. We want that recognition.
Self.
But is it necessarily bad?
What are your intentions? It all draws back to your intentions. Why are you doing it?
Could you get famous for, well, I guess, could you get famous for wanting to really help and elevate people?
Yes, but are you doing to be famous?
Uh, Maybe they're one and the same. The only way that, maybe the best way to help the largest amount of people is to get famous on some level. But then in the act of getting famous, do you fall off the, like, so Jesus was this being of light and love and whatever. Uh, if he came along and he gained fame of the world and the world kind of put him on a pedestal, it's like, all right, here's this man of light and love, and we're going to follow him as our, would that act twist him? Can you imagine the temptation that you would have having admiration of the world
right
on you?
Well, if you think about it,
could you
crazy.
even that would be an incredible thing to resist on so many different levels. I can just, like, my mind can just go like, whoa.
Right.
Like, people would literally be throwing themselves at you from all different angles for all sorts of reasons.
I would say that Jesus was the most famous human to ever come on this earth, because we're still talking about him thousands of years later.
I'd argue, though, that he probably didn't gain that fame until after he was dead.
He didn't want it. He probably did not want it. If you think about the suit, oh man, where was I going with this? Go ahead, do say something, because I forgot.
Well, because people will say, well, he was going around and he had crowds of people following him. I don't know about that. Like, I
found it.
That might be more symbolic than, but I don't know.
Well, that's why he came in the form that he did. He came in the form of a baby. He came in the form without any glory, without any majesty, he came to lay his head. He had no place to stay. He came even homeless. He told his disciples, he said, I don't have a place.
He suffered physically.
I don't have a place to rest my head. He said that. Like, these are the things he went through. But if it was a God of force, a God of whatever, God very easily could have been like, I'm God. I'm here. I can do this. And then everyone would follow him. But in the form that he came, the people that want to follow him are the ones that actually know him. The ones that actually fell in love with him. The ones that are real. Not the ones that are following just because everyone else is following. And I believe that's why Jesus did all of that. To give people the option. And not fool anyone. Although he can do anything. Jesus could have done anything. He could have been like, boom, watch. There's going to be another earth there in 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3. Boom. I just made it. How'd you make it? I'm Jesus. Like, I'm God. But he didn't. He came in the form of a servant, not a master. Even though, of course, the disciples called him master and everything, but he came to serve.
That's really the message. The only way to be a true master is to be a servant.
But why?
And it's this idea of going back to the animals and stuff of the world. If we're really in our right state of mind, we're going to put them above ourselves. I mean, if we had the needs of the animals as priority on this planet, the world would start looking different, because we're wrecking the place for them. We really are. And we're the worst. So Canadians, Americans, Australians, but these industrialized countries, we're wrecking the place. And
for money, hey?
We're so arrogant
that
we think that we're the best. And on some levels, we certainly are. I mean, we have light switches on the wall. There's places that don't. It's like, but it all comes with a price. It really does. And we really are destroying. We're consumers. We have no regard for the world at large. Everything out there is just a way to make money. To
Makes me think of poachers. Poachers, they take innocent animals, kill them just for their the material form, just for ivory.
but just your average Canadian who's a good person, who doesn't wake up in the morning with an intent to harm or kill, they actually are. They're waking up and they are harming and they are killing and they are destroying. They don't give it a thought, but that's exactly, and we've been trained and we've been conditioned to do that. So as a Canadian, I'm at the top of the list for, like per capita, if you think of how much damage, we're really at the top.
Conditioning's what made me lose my hair. Just kidding. Just kidding. Well, actually, maybe there's double meaning there, I guess. I guess we're conditioned to something that made me stressed out.
Because to bring this back around, that's kind of what I struggle with this is what happened to me 3 years ago, is I realized I'm part of something that is very destructive. We're born into this machine that is just tearing up and kind of consuming. It's like realizing you're a cancer cell in a cancer tumor. And we really are, it's unsustainable. The way we live is unsustainable. And yet, we go about our day without really even thinking about that. And better off if you don't. And yeah, we live in this realm of willful ignorance. And I really do struggle with this. What can I contribute to here? What can I be a part of? I want to, but I don't. I have serious kind of problems with all of it on some level.
Well, it's like, you live in the world, but you're not of the world. I think.
Yeah, what does that actually look like? What does that actually mean? Well, if Jesus was here right now, what would he do? What kind of...
He'd do the same thing. I think he'd do the exact same thing. He would live...
Same thing as he did 2,000 years ago?
Same thing. The exact same thing.
Yeah, he would pull away and he would...
Yeah, because if you think about it, the human condition hasn't really changed. History repeats itself. Just because we're in a different time.
It's the same culture.
It's the same thing. It's the same reasoning, He would do the same thing. So I guess the best contribution we can make to this world is being Christ-like, is being that example, is truly loving. Loving for what it stands for.
So does that mean going on a
love streak?
on a pilgrimage?
Well, think about pilgrimage. Who is going?
Who?
Who is going?
Well, it's to point to something. The whole purpose of it is to point to something greater than ourselves.
But what if no one sees you? How can you point to something if someone can't see it?
Maybe it only matters if one sees us.
Right? But then who are we doing it for?
So this is like Moses being kind of let out of Egypt. Yeah, why?
But who did he come out with, though? He came out with 600,000 people. That's a lot of people, right? Now, the reason he split himself from the congregation was to be able to have that connection with God. To the point where, God gave him the commandments. That's a slight separation, but it was close enough for him to return, to minister to the crowd again.
If those 600,000 people hadn't came out with him, he still would have had to go. See, that's all beyond his control.
Well, think about it. What would be the point if he was... Again, in him going to Egypt, it required a sacrifice. He left Egypt 40 years before then. He left on bad standings. He just killed one of the Egyptians. He ran away. God required him to go back to a place where he did not want to return to, in order to use him to minister to the 600,000 people that were there, in order to bring them out of exile. Right? If you think that's a very messianic concept as well. Moses came from a place into a place he didn't want to, to redeem the ones that were enslaved. So just like Jesus came from a place, going into a place that was undesirable, to be able to redeem the people that were in exile so that they could be saved. And he led them into a promised land, just like Jesus is leading us into the promised land. Right?
I see it now. Like I see if there was people now who got that message, it would be the same.
Same thing.
It's
Exactly.
like the only way to change this culture is to actually, create something new now. It's not like a phase in thing. It's like, no, it's like, all right, today we're going to do something different.
Right.
And I think we really got to get back to focusing on our needs.
Right.
Like we all have the same needs, right? We all just need food and shelter and clothing. Really, that's all we need. But we're separated from our needs. We don't know how to get what we need.
Well, sometimes we forget who our provider is of those needs. A lot of times.
We don't go to school to learn how to get what we actually need.
Right.
We go to school to be conditioned to be part of a system.
It's all conditioning.
That leaves us dependent on, there's some people somewhere that know how to produce what we need but if we all did, if we all were
trained for absolutely every single sector.
Well, for the things that matter.
Right. There wouldn't be any if everyone knew what to do, there wouldn't be specialized sectors. There wouldn't be doctors. There wouldn't be mechanics. There wouldn't be anything. There wouldn't be businesses because everyone knows the same thing. You get hurt, you get operated by your brother that's right beside you. You know what I mean? There wouldn't be specialists. But again, that's a form of segregation.
There would always be people with skills.
Right.
And
of course,
desires and ambitions to do whatever and whatever. And I'm not saying to eradicate everything as it is.
Right.
But I am saying that if we shifted our focus onto what really mattered.
Yeah, I'm talking about the world that you were saying that if everyone.
Yeah. I know, but when you started talking about it, it's like, wow. It's like, yeah.
Yeah, but in reality, of course, there's people that have different talents, different skills, different whatever. I have a friend, oh my goodness, he's amazing at playing guitar. Like, amazing, but I can't pick up the guitar the same way as him. Like, I can't do it. That's his talent. But again, he developed that talent from how much time he spent with it. Just like our connection with God depends on how much time we spend with him. I guess the average Christian says they're Christians, but they don't have a time that they spend with God. I used to be that Christian, where I used to call myself a Christian, but I was more than a part of the world. I wanted fame, I wanted riches, I wanted to be close to the richest guy in the world, if not the richest. And why? You know what I mean?
What do you mean? So this is one of these things that kind of means something different to everyone. You say spending time with God. What are you visualizing when you say that?
That's a relationship. A lot of the time, I spend time with God, reading the Word, but it's also that time in prayer. Something we don't understand is that we can really take God anywhere we are, anything we're doing. Sometimes, I love playing basketball. Those that know me, I love playing basketball. And I invite God to play basketball with me. It doesn't have to be this whole holy session. I'm just, Lord, would you come with me to play basketball? Like, teach me how to play. Like, let's do this together. And he tells me, okay, let's go. But that's even a form of wanting to be with him. Like, if you think about heaven in general, what's the point of heaven if there's no God? What's the point of heaven? The whole point is to reunite the bride with the bridegroom. That's the point. But if you're not going for the bridegroom, you're just going for the animals that you finally get to have a pet tiger and walk the streets of gold, then why are you going to heaven? There's no point. You're going for the wrong reason, right?
Yeah.
So oh, sorry, go ahead.
Maybe there is no wrong reason. Maybe, I don't know.
There could be a wrong reason as to why people want heaven. What if the only reason they want to go to heaven is to live forever? Then who are they living for?
Well, even the whole concept of heaven.
Right.
So one person's heaven is going to be another person's hell. And so if my vision of a world of heaven is like a world with no suffering and whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe that's not going to jive with maybe that's why we are here.
Yeah.
Because we saw this stink hole and we're like, I want to go stink like them because it looks like it would be fun.
Well,
I don't know.
We weren't.
Maybe it looked like heaven
Right.
from wherever we were before we.
But we were never created to stink, right? Stink happened as a result of selfishness.
But maybe we just like to stink.
Some people only know to stink, right? Some people only know to stink. They don't know that they smell bad.
But maybe they're not wrong to, like this terms of, yeah, people smell bad, people stink, and they do whatever that makes them. But maybe, yeah, I don't know.
Well, think about it.
Like this idea that there's some choosing to descend and go down while others are choosing to rise and
some people
and
don't
elevate.
know.
And maybe one has to happen for the other to happen.
I think that how I see it is like this. We were all here as a result of sin, because Adam traded the rights to this world to Satan. It went down like this. And what Jesus came to do was to take that back by conquering death. So perfection actually took a different course. The perfection that was once is now even more, because now we know the difference between right and wrong. Now the concept of stench, like what we're talking about, is a result of sin. Stench in itself is what, like bacteria, like forming and stuff like that, or I can't speak on the whole chemical whatever. I'm not that smart, but it's not something typically desirable. No one likes something that stinks. That's why we have air fresheners. That's why we got a bunch of different things. But
there is something desirable in the turmoil and in the darkness. Like there is that identity.
So it's because someone doesn't know otherwise. Like if there's two wallets in front of you and there's $1,000 cash in one and a $5 bill in the other, you're not going to constantly keep grabbing the $5 bill one because it's a nice blue bill. In Canada, in the States, you got all that cut and stuff. But you're not going to want to keep grabbing it because like, oh yeah, that $5 is attractive. Yet that $1,000 is like, whatever. Like at the end of the day, you're going to end up losing $995.
So how do you actually get people to see to see that they do stink, that there's a way not to stink, and to get home? How do you actually help anyone? Because that's the kind of what the call is to make disciples of the people. How do you actually do it?
It's actually pretty easy.
Well,
compare and contrast. You can't have two things the same and know the difference between them. But if you have something that's so different to the other one, automatically one's going to say this one stinks and this one smells good. To the point where they'll be like,
well, you got to give me a practical example of this.
A practical example.
Because this is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
How do you get people to...
so you want like a solution on how to do it? That's what you're asking?
Well, maybe I need to define it a little better.
Define it. Okay, so...
Because how I see it is, we're kind of called to become Christ-like, to become like Jesus. How do you get people to actually believe that that's possible, for one, and to actually try and to want to?
Well, you can't give something you don't know, right? I can't give you information how to build a rocket ship if I don't know how to build one myself. You can't know darkness if you're only in darkness. You can't know light if you're only in light, or kind of thing. Like,
yeah, that's a good point.
Right? So you can't know unless you have the difference. So in order for us...
That's exactly what we need to know. We need to know the impossible.
Now
how to change the hearts and minds of people.
Right? So the best way to do that is, if we want people to know who Jesus is, then we need to know who Jesus is. You can't teach your kids something you don't know either. You can't teach your kids about Jesus if you don't know Jesus yourself. And that happens in a lot of Christian homes.
So you're saying become more Christ-like.
Become Christ-like and everything else will line up. Imagine, I know sometimes we talked about it off camera, but sometimes when we suffer of things or things that we're lost, like let's say we're about to lose something big that can affect our credit, can whatever, can mess us up for life. When people see our reaction to us losing everything and see how are they still so happy? What is going on? Like they literally just lost their whole family. They just lost all their money. Like they're literally living on the streets. Why are they smiling? That's how you can be a light in the darkness. Because your light needs to shine brighter than their darkness.
Got to be more. So another thing is, because people say that it's like, yeah, it's about becoming Christ-like, and Christians say that. I can point to some obvious stumbling blocks that people are stumbling over if they wanted me to.
Right.
And but yeah, that's the question is, but we don't look at ourselves. So yeah, that's really the question is, what am I tripping up on right now?
If we're tripping,
what am I?
Right.
Because we can't see what we're tripping up on ourselves, or we don't want to, one of the two. But there is something.
Well, that's the thing. Jesus, he teaches us to live above the storm. He takes us above the storm. He takes us to a place where, yes, the storm still happens underneath, but you're living above it now. So, yes, we have stumbling blocks, but it's how we react to those stumbling blocks that defines who we trust.
We had a group of people that were actually wanted to know what they were kind of stumbling over and wanting to help other people see, you know what I mean? Because it's an attack against self. Like if you tell me what's wrong with me, and I don't want to hear it's offensive. Like you're going to offend me, you're going to hurt me, you're going to anger me. But what if I actually want to know it? And what if you really want to know it? I'm going to tell you what I see.
Then you'd be more eager to change. You know, of course.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. We need. It would be great to have a group of minds who really do believe that it's possible to become Christ-like and want to work together to do it, and they want their vulnerabilities and their dysfunction exposed, not someone else's.
And that's the thing.
That's what I need to find is a group of minds and people with that intent.
They say a lot of the times that if you have millionaire friends, you become a millionaire. And I guess the reason why they say that is because, or another term is, in Spanish, there's one that says that if you hang out in honey, something gets stuck to you. If you hang out with the wolves, you learn how to howl.
Yeah.
Right? So when you have someone, you say someone that's Christ-like and someone that's not, it'll get to the point where if they're with you so much, or you're with them so much, something takes, something gives. One of them turns into the other. Someone loses Christ and becomes unchristlike, or someone loses or becomes Christlike. Now, there's always a what is it? Like an opposite power? No, there's another word for it. I'm not sure. Anyways, opposing power. There's always an opposing power that conquers. Right? You're playing chess. There's black pieces, there's white pieces, but one of them wins. You know, ultimately, if you have a group of people that have the same mindset and someone else comes with a different mindset, eventually, it's their choice if they want to share the same mindset as you and grow with you. But at the same time, it's value add. I used to work for Wireless Wave, and one of the things they taught us is to have value add. Add value to the things that you're selling. Add value, make it more valuable. Even if it's not valuable, but even that's not something I want to learn. But if you're adding value to what life with Christ looks like, people are going to want what you have. But if you're showing that you have Christ, yet you're always failing, you're always stumbling, you're always crying about something, then they're like, okay, like if this is what trusting in Christ looks like, I don't need to be a Christian. I can do that without it.
Well, it's pretty obvious. Like it's the fruits of the Spirit. So these qualities of love and joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control.
Oh, you actually
I add on.
You almost hit actually all of them.
Yeah, and I add on gratitude, generosity, and service. It's like that's my 12 disciples. And when I see those qualities in people, and I do, because those qualities are in all people, uh, I know it's their true self.
Got it.
That's
Yeah.
who they
Yeah.
really are. And if we're anything less than that, we're, it's something that we've learned and whatever. But I run into examples of people who are amazing, who just kind of have these kind of qualities. And yeah, it really is kind of encouraging to me, because I can be more like that. It's like, yeah, I want to be more like that.
Exactly.
But where I'm at is if you kind of run into people like that, but they have an intent to kind of gain more of that even themselves and to help you and we kind of get together as a group and we get a little self-critical and we hold each other accountable.
Then you have a movement.
That's what I'm saying.
Then you have a movement that's worth.
That's what I'm looking for. That's what I need. I'm tired of being alone.
Yeah. Well,
I'm tired of being. I really do. I want to find some like-minded people.
Well, because of the van, now you're not.
Yeah.
I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, that's definitely not in my path. Is to. Yeah, as soon as I got that van, so this was 6 months ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a huge burden. I was really conflicted with coming back into the world because I had really left it.
Right.
I left everything. And yeah, I really struggled with the whole thing. But so it'll be good to
Get rid of it.
to get that off. Yeah.
Yeah. And then,
but still,
yeah.
I'm still there's an apprehension and a fear as well because I don't have a crystal ball. I'm not sure exactly how things are going to work out. I stay in the moment.
Right.
And that's the only way to, to keep my mind in a healthy place is just knowing that, the future is going to work itself out one way or another.
It's interesting now because now I believe the van's going to stay in the family. So if you think about it, it's like you lost it, but you didn't. And there's still whatever is ahead, right?
Yeah.
That's crazy. As before, if it would have been someone else, you would have completely lost it, or someone wouldn't have talked to you, or this and that. Who knows, right?
Yeah, but and that's one of those things that just kind of worked out. Like I just kind of listed it, and then what's the odds that you are the one?
Oh, man,
no nobody even really saw it. Like I didn't list it, and it was just like a Facebook thing. And
which really, it wasn't even on Marketplace or anything.
Well, that is Marketplace.
Oh, okay,
right?
yeah. That's sorry, Facebook? I don't even know how I came up. I'm just still thinking about it. Yeah, it was Marketplace. That's right.
Yeah.
Wow.
And yeah, no one had even really looked at it, and then you were like really the first person. And it was so funny, like I said, when you came over here, so we didn't even look at the van.
Oh my goodness, we didn't even start it. Nothing.
Started talking.
Yeah.
Hilarious. But I knew then that it was done.
Right.
One way or another.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm
You're free, basically.
Well, I'm walking away from it. Like I'm going somewhere else. I'm not sure what that looks like yet, but we'll see. But I do want to. That's kind of the idea of. We're recording this, and I recently made a Facebook page. It kind of is this attempt to go into another realm, trying to appeal to whoever I can appeal to start something. Because I really at a loss of, in so many ways of, the way the world is and the lack of viable options.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's interesting.
It's time for change. Something's gotta start.
I think it's time.
And it's got to be something amazing.
It's something big is gonna happen.
Something
is.
If it's doom and gloom and whatever, well, I guess that is what it is as well. I really do. What keeps me going is I really do latch on to this idea that we are more than we appear to be. This is just we're here in this dream or this matrix or this simulation.
I think
It's a game. You know, we're here to learn, and we're playing, and it's a school. We're growing, and but it isn't home. It is exactly that.
yeah.
And
This isn't home yet.
now that I know what I am and where I am, now that I know what you are, really, it's like, well, we got to change the game.
Let's do it.
Or I got to go to a world where they have.
Mm.
And it really is all about now, one or the other.
Well, as long as it's all in honor and glory of God, that's the only way it's worth moving. That's the only way. And until people get to see how beautiful, how amazing He truly is, and they see it through us, that's the only way they can see it for themselves. We have to be the change that we want to see in the world.
There you go. Well, maybe we should end it right there.
All right.
That was beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. This is awesome.
Well, thank you,
I really appreciate this. I appreciate you for like just your spirit. Like
Thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate yours, bro.
You have friendly eyes and a friendly face. And,
Thank you.
These really are the fruits, right? And when you're just like that, you just have that energy. I mean, it's impossible to know how you personally actually affect people in the world. But just by having that demeanor, there's no way you don't. Like, you have to. Like, yeah. Keep shining your light, brother.
Thank you, bro. You as well. Let's shine it together, yeah?
All right.
My man.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're done.